Just wait the obligatory few seconds.
Yes.
Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so Dark Bleatings, everybody, welcome back for another author interview. I'm absolutely ecstatic today. If anyone follows my channel, and you'll know and have heard of this several times by now, but I have with me an award-nominated best-selling author, Rachel Harrison. So thank you for being here, Rachel. I really appreciate you giving us the time.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to talk.
Yes. Happy Goat Horror. Um, I want to jump straight in with Black Sheep because this was the book that introduced me to you as an author, and I randomly discovered it because I received it in a Abominable Book Club box.
Yes.
Uh, and I wasn't supposed to be veering off my reading list that I'd already made, but I something about the cover I just couldn't resist. And I won't give any spoilers because I would love everyone to be as delighted and surprised by this as I was. But this ticked every single box for me as a horror fan for the kind of stuff that I like. Can we talk a little bit about how you wanted to approach the religious horror aspect of it?
So it's interesting because it is like a religious horror book, a bit culty, but like for me, it wasn't, the book is not about religion. It's not about
Hmm.
cults. The book is about faith and
Hmm.
belief. Um, I wrote it in 2022 and like kind of was thinking about it during the pandemic and just, we're all inside, we're all getting all of our news from like Twitter. And it just felt like everyone was like, this is the worst time to be alive. Everything sucks. Like, I'm sorry, do you hear that like bird chirping outside the window?
I know.
Okay, good, good. As I'm like talking about like everybody has no faith, there's like this bird outside like singing its song. Um, but I was just feeling very low and like having no faith in humanity and just being
Mhm.
like, is this the worst time to be alive? Does everything suck? Like, are people the worst? Like, and I was wrestling with a lot of that. And I grew up, I was raised Catholic
Mhm.
and sort of didn't go back to church after I made my confirmation. And kind of wishing I still had faith, wishing I could believe in something bigger than myself, and wrestling with a lot of that. And that's sort of what led to the sort of culty religious aspect of the book. It was
Mhm.
not about like a specific religion. I mean, a little bit is me wrestling with my being raised Catholic, but mostly it's not a judgment on religion. It's more of a rumination on belief.
Yeah, I what I really enjoyed about it was the family dynamic aspect, and I mean family as far as like extending to your neighbors and friends as well, especially if you come from a community where everyone is really close knit. And the community, I really wanted to be in it for a while.
Yeah, up until a point.
I thought, oh, how lovely that they're all having dinner together and everyone seems. I thought that you the characterization of all of these people, like I could really see them, and a lot of them really reminded me of my uncles and people I know. So I loved it. Was sort of a double-edged sword kind of thing. And I've been picking up in your work, particularly in Such Sharp Teeth, which I've recently read and loved. You do seem to work thematically a lot with family dynamics. Um, Friendships and things like that. Is that something that you consciously care about when you're writing, like drafting the first draft, for example, or is it something you work in a bit later?
Absolutely. So I think it starts with me. I write close first person, so it always
Mhm.
starts with character, but I write to explore the world and to try and figure myself out and figure out how I feel about things. And so I write a lot about relationships because relationships are hard and confusing. And like, I have a soft, sensitive, fragile heart, and I'm like easily hurt in relationships, or I like, you know, I really, when I love somebody, I really, really love them. And
Mhm.
so I think it makes you very vulnerable. And so I'm always fascinated by relationships, endlessly fascinated by relationships. And so whether it be a family or romantic or especially friendships, because my friendships are probably the most important relationships in my life.
Hmm.
I always want to explore that in my work. And I also think that um, for me, for the horror to work, I want everything else to feel really grounded. And so I want my protagonist to feel like somebody that you know or you used to work with or a friend.
Hmm.
And I want the relationships to feel real and relatable. I want everything to feel real so that the horror aspect, like, also can kind of feel like, oh, this could happen. It doesn't feel so fantastical that it takes away from like the message that I'm trying to get out or the thing that I'm trying to explore thematically. So that it's very intentional. And I love to write about relationships. I could write about relationships forever.
Your protagonists and all of your characters really are very grounded. So when the horror kicks in, it's even scarier because it's so real world, the backdrop that you work with. And I love Vesper, possibly my favorite protagonist of all time, and I loved Rory as well.
Mm.
They they read like you're more concerned with making them real than making them likable in the first instance, but they are likable, but they're great sort of like flawed layered characters. um when you're writing in your antagonists, how do you worry at all about like like the villain line, like where you could start going cartoony? Because there's been scope to go cartoonish, but you haven't. I thought you were quite restrained.
Oh, thank you. I mean, my stuff is a little bit campy because I want it to be fun too, but
Yeah.
um I don't see my villains as villains, and I
Mhm.
think that's important. Like I think the most compelling villains have a point.
Yeah.
And where you could be like, oh, you could be the hero of this story. Like um everybody in Black Sheep who is in Vesper's family, like they have a point of view. And you
Hmm.
could argue that maybe that's the right point of view. And everybody, and then in Such Sharp Teeth, there's not really an antagonist, but the one kind of character who maybe could be, if you had to pick one, who could be the antagonist, has some very valid points
Hmm.
and is justified in the way that they feel. And to me, that keeps them from being cartoonish because
Yeah.
I want them to challenge my protagonist in a way that's compelling. If they're out and out wrong and have no point, then it's just like a very basic good versus evil kind of thing. I want my protagonist to make mistakes and be real, and I want my antagonist, quote unquote, to make mistakes and be real, but both have a point of view that has some validity to it because I think in life it's never as black and white as we want it to be. I think
Hmm.
when we get in arguments or when we have, challenges with people, there's always both people believe that they're right. And
Hmm.
so um that's another thing that in my work I want to like make it feel as true to life as possible. I want it to be relatable. I write to feel less alone in the world and I publish to feel less alone in the world, to have somebody pick up, I read to feel less alone in the world. I want to pick up a book and be like, ah, it's not just me. And
Yeah.
so that's what I try and put in. And I think if it was just like a very basic, like, I'm good and right and you're bad and wrong, people would kind of come away from it being like, okay, so like, I don't know, it's unsatisfying to me.
I agree. As a reader, your characters, I find them really relatable, first of all, because, everyone has problems or they've got things from their past. And I think that the particular things that your protagonists go through, you articulate the sense of loneliness that gives people really well. Because
Mm,
I, especially with Rory, with what she starts going through, like, I mean, I've never been in this particular predicament myself. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, the panicking that oh gosh, is this going to be believable if I tell someone this, or is
yeah.
someone going to reject me? Those are, I feel like those are universal feelings, and when you read into a character, that you relate to. It's like quite comforting even in a horror
Yeah.
story. And I found myself just thinking about these dynamics for, weeks after I've read your books. I'm still thinking about Black Sheep, and I read that months ago. Um, I give an award at the end of the year for my favorite horror novel of the year,
Oh,
and this is battling it out with a couple right now. I have to tell you,
ooh,
I told my husband earlier, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do at the end of the year if I
there's
read
stiff
anything else.
competition. There's
Yes.
stiff competition. Yeah.
um, what kind of horror do you enjoy reading or watching?
I kind of run the gamut. It depends. Like, I am a bit sensitive. I think when I was younger, I was like, give me everything bleak and dark. And now that as I get older, and I think just in the current world climate, I'm a little bit more sensitive to like what I take in.
Hmm.
Um, and I used to be like, I like, elevated horror. Now I'm like, give me a slasher, give me something like whatever. Give me something campy like Malignant was like I had so much fun watching. It's like completely crazy and campy, but I had a lot of fun watching that movie. Um, my favorite horror movie is The Orphanage.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's a good choice.
just gorgeous. And that was the first movie where I was like, it sounds silly, but it was the first horror movie I watched that I was like, oh, this is a vehicle to tell like a really
Hmm.
profound story. Like it terrified me, but it also made me feel a lot. And I think that was like a big light bulb moment for me in the genre. Um, but I will kind of, I am not discerning with what I like. I will kind of like mood read.
Hmm.
I read a lot of horror. I think there's, tastes differ, but like some recent horror books that I really loved. I think probably my favorite horror book of the year, which I feel like is going to be a lot of people's favorite horror book of the year, American Rapture by C.J. Lead.
Oh, I
Um,
have that on my list, but I haven't
yeah,
gotten it yet.
very dark, but also like extremely beautiful. I like wept for like an hour. I was like like reading the last bit of that book and then onward. And then I'm biased, not biased. They're my friends, but like I should say I'm not biased because they're my friends. I just really
Mhm.
love their work and we happen to be friends. But like Clay McLeod Chapman's work,
Oh
Nat
yeah.
Cassidy's work,
Hmm.
um, Eric LaRocca, um, Christy DeMeester,
Hmm.
um, like anything they write. Alexis Henderson, I'm a huge fan.
Oh yeah,
Um,
me too. She's another recent obsession.
yes, her newest, An Academy for Liars, comes out in September and it's brilliant. Um, Paul Tremblay. I'm a Paul Tremblay super fan. He's perhaps my uh a favorite of mine if I were to throw around the word favorite. So yeah, kind of like
Mhm.
it varies.
Yeah, I love a lot of those authors. I think
Yeah.
there's only one of those that you mentioned that I haven't actually read. But yeah, yeah. Sorry, I could go off on a tangent. I'm going to try and center myself
Oh,
because I've got limited time with you. I'm a bit known for going off on excited tangents, Rachel, so I try to rein it
I
in.
love a tangent though.
Um, if we, yeah, the tone of your horror is something that I really appreciate because I used to only like really bleak, um, horrible endings. If someone had the balls to like kill everyone in their book at the end, I was like, oh yeah, but
Yeah.
and I still do like that on occasion. But the older I get, the harder I ruminate too much on those things. And I
Yeah.
need a bit of lightness, and I really appreciate the sense of humor that you have in your books. And my favorite thing possibly about Rory in this is a mild spoiler. This is a werewolf book, everyone.
Yes.
If you can't tell. And I think my favorite thing in the whole book was when she realizes that she's, been bitten by a werewolf and she's becoming one, there's not that stereotypical like werewolf story thing of, oh no, but werewolves aren't real and can't be happening. And I loved that you just dispensed with all of that and she was like, oh, okay, so this is happening. Gonna have to deal with this now. And it was so refreshing because I love werewolf stories, but I'm really fussy with them because most of the time a werewolf story is the entire book is someone dealing with just not believing.
Denial. Yeah.
Yeah. And I get a bit it's a bit tiresome sometimes if you've read a lot of those books. So when we hit that point with your book, I was like, oh, cool. We're just skipping right over this so we can get to the more like fun stuff. And I loved the relationship with her sister when she's trying to decide how to tell her and everything. I loved that for reasons I can't figure out why at the moment, but I loved that her sister was pregnant. Um I don't know why, but I felt
It's the
extra tense
parallel.
because mm,
It's the parallel, I think, between, for
yeah.
me, it was, sorry to interrupt, but I
Oh
think for
no.
me, it was like I wanted to explore what it is to be inside a body and like to have your body change without in ways that you can't control.
Yeah.
And so there's like it was necessary to have that parallel between the two of them, where it's like one sister is going through a supernatural transformation and the other one is going through a very like human transformation.
Mhm.
And to have it kind of help continue to, like, as I was talking about earlier, root the story in reality.
Yeah, it was beautifully done. The that connection because pregnancy horror is another subgenre that I'm very into at the moment.
Right.
I think it's because I'm hoping to be pregnant at some point
Mhm.
and I'm scared of it. So I figure that if I read enough horrific pregnancy horror, the
Prepare
actual
you for, yeah.
the actual experience will pale in comparison.
Yes.
Um, and I think that the way that you linked the two was again refreshing because there are very scary elements of pregnancy and childbirth that women are kind of expected to just take it on the chin because that's what we're here for. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I loved the interweaving of their stories, and it made me feel just a bit extra tense that there was a baby on the way with werewolves afoot.
Yeah.
Just in case, you know.
Yeah. To just add a little bit of stress to Rory's plate of like, well, you're going to be an
Mhm.
auntie, so you got to get this under control. Like,
Yeah.
um,
I'm sure lots of people want to go feral on their nieces and nephews,
yes.
depending on, so that's probably quite relatable to some people.
Yes.
Um, as far as subgenre goes, I've noticed through your work I don't like to split everything into subgenres all the time, but you have tackled religion slash cult, werewolves, witches,
Yes.
and I believe, if I'm not mistaken or misled by the title of your upcoming novel,
Vampires.
I'm assuming vampires. So, yes, I have recently said on social media that I truly hope that you're just going to hop around all of my favorite subgenres because you are so far. Um, do you start with a subgenre that you want to work with, or do you start with character or story idea and then work the rest in?
So I typically start with like something I want to explore. Like for So Thirsty, um, I was thinking a lot about, I'm about to turn 35. So I was thinking a lot about aging
Hmm.
and being a woman getting older
Hmm.
and sort of settled in life and choices and kind of feeling angsty about all that. And I was like looking in the mirror one day, being like, oh, like just like examining my reflection and just thinking about how vampires can't see their reflection and being like,
Oh.
oh, there's a connection there. And then um, somehow it turned into Thelma and Louise with vampires. And then somehow from there, it turned into like thinking about like this happened with Such Sharp Teeth too. Like once you dive into a monster or a metaphor, it
Hmm.
kind of expands in unexpected ways. So like thinking about desire and want with
Hmm.
vampires because one, vampires tend to be sexy, and two, because like I think often, especially as women, we are taught to suppress our desire and suppress our want,
Hmm.
whether it be, you know, like I want to eat a piece of chocolate cake.
Hmm.
No, like, we're taught that like, or like, I want to go home with that guy. No,
Hmm.
that will make you a slut or whatever. Like we're taught to like to hold back, to be ashamed of our desires. And as vampires, like they desire blood, but that's what they need to survive. So
Hmm.
it'd be like if, as a woman, we were told not to have water. And like
Hmm.
just thinking about that kind of opened the book up in a really interesting way. And then thinking about, so I think of like the metaphor, like what I want to explore, the monster, the metaphor, and then finding the right character and voice to tell that story. And
Hmm.
that's usually how it all comes together.
That's cool. That's really interesting that so you start with start with something you want to explore and then find the monster
Yeah.
appropriate for it. Yeah, that's such a cool approach to forming a whole horror story. Um yes, well, the this is responsible for making me break my book buying ban, Rachel. I was on a book
I
buying ban
I'm
and
very
then
sorry, but also very grateful.
I thought, ah, dang it, I've done so. I was trying to read 100 books that I already owned before I bought and
Oh,
read any new ones, and I got to 64 and then came across this. I thought, oh well, I mean, it would
64 is
be
good
rude
though.
not to. Have to. So, are there any subgenres or maybe like subject matter areas that you think you will never write in?
Um, I would never say never. I think there will always be some kind of supernatural, speculative, scary aspect in all my books.
Hmm.
I think that's safe to say. But maybe I would do like a science fiction-y something. Maybe I would do um, I don't know, cosmic horror. Like I would dabble in other, like I'm not just gonna do monster every time.
Hmm.
Um, but I think for me, it always having a supernatural element. Like I don't know if I would ever write just like a straight novel
Hmm.
where there's no like supernatural tomfoolery.
Oh,
I think it would be boring, too boring for me.
yeah, I prefer supernatural horror.
Yes.
There's just something I think maybe just straight up real world horror is a bit too it's
I
too
need
grim for me.
the escapism. Like I need the
Yeah.
escapism. Yeah.
Yeah, I do not want to read like a home invasion story, for example, because that kind of stuff freaks me out.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, zombies, werewolves, vampires, very comfortable. Um, oh gosh, what was I just going? I had a burning question on the tip of my tongue. Mm, sorry, trying to get back there. My brain's gone very busy because
No.
I'm trying to fit in all the questions I want to ask you. at the time. Um, so sorry. This doesn't normally
We could
happen.
go like 5 minutes over. It's totally fine.
Okay. Um, oh, dang it. Sorry, this doesn't normally happen to me. I normally just full steam ahead, talking way too much. Can you tell us a little bit about your upcoming novel?
So thirsty.
Yeah,
Um,
so
so it's like
excited.
it's out September 10th. It's basically I kind of pitched it as Thelma and Louise meets Let the Right One In. It
Mm,
is about Sloane Parker, who is on the eve of her 36th birthday, and her husband gifts her a weekend getaway trip, not with him, but with Sloane's best friend and troublemaker extraordinaire, Naomi.
mhm.
Sloane is kind of like quiet, reserved, kind of like um, passive, and Naomi is like a wild child, like out there, loves to have a good time. And the two of them go to this like little rental cottage in the Finger Lakes region of New York State. And Sloane suspects that her husband sent her on this trip not purely out of benevolence, but he's having an affair. And so she's a little morose. And Naomi, to cheer up Sloane, plots like a night out on the town with some guys she met at a bar. And that night goes awry in a way that changes their lives literally forever. And
Cool.
hijinks ensue.
Sounds a bit, I can't wait to read it. I'm so excited.
Oh, I hope you like it.
I have five authors now, including you, where your new releases are on my automatic pre-order list. So
Such a high compliment.
yes, I try not to do that with many authors because otherwise I am forever spending all of my money, but
Right.
I just couldn't, I can't resist. Do you plot or are you more of a pantser? because your stories come together so beautifully in like the third act. I have to know.
That's that's my editor. I wish I was a plotter. I try to outline, but I if I outline too much, it takes the like fun and discovery out of it for me.
Hmm.
So I need to like have a vague idea of where I think I'm going,
Hmm.
and like or else like there's been times where I've gotten halfway through a book and been like, oh, this isn't going anywhere, like
Hmm.
shit, and had to throw it out. So I need to have an idea of like the arc and like where I'm gonna go and like what's gonna happen and what I envision happening. But if I plot it out too much, then I get bored and then it
Hmm.
feels rigid and then it like doesn't work. So kind of in between, but like on the spectrum, like way closer to Pantser, which is
Hmm.
so inconvenient. I'm so jealous of people who outline and like can just be like, it's gonna be boop, 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 and then just write based on that outline and have a grand old time. No, because I write and I get stressed out, like, where's this going? But I think it finds a way, and then my editor will come in and we can refine so everything ties up
Hmm.
pretty.
Yes, the value of a good editor cannot be overstated.
Yes, my editor's Jessica Wade at Berkeley. She also edits Alexis Henderson, Grady Hendrix. Extremely, extremely talented editor. I owe a lot to her.
Yeah, well, the yeah, I really thought you were a plotter because you have these lovely little details that like come back around later, and I love it when I read that, you know, like 100 pages later, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that from earlier.
That's all in the second drafting. Like
Yeah.
the first draft doesn't have those threads, but
Hmm.
once I need to like always get like a down draft. I need to like get it out and then
Hmm.
make sense of it. Um, so the refining comes in editing, but
Hmm.
on my drafts, I'm just like, we're just gonna see what happens.
Yeah. Do you ever change your mind about where you want it to go in the end as you're writing?
Yeah, I think I have. Um, I think Black Sheep, I sort of saw it going dark at the
Mhm.
end, and it ended up, not to, I don't think this is a spoiler because none of my work is bleak.
Mhm.
It ended up a little bit more hopeful.
Mhm.
It's not like super hopeful, but like it's more hopeful than like I initially was like, I'm gonna go scorched earth.
Mhm.
It just, I think it depends on the characters and what feels right to the story because
Mhm.
sometimes in the beginning I'll be like, this is what's going to happen. And then based on how the character develops and the tone of the work, like I'm like, that's not the right ending. So really the character and how the story develops is going to inform what the end is, which I think is why thus far I haven't had any bleak endings because it just tonally has not felt right from
Yeah.
the character and the story that I build, and also like the things that I explore. Like
Mhm.
I write female characters, I write about hard stuff, real hard stuff. And I want it to be cathartic. I don't want somebody to
Mhm.
pick up my book and then put it down and feel hopeless. I
Mhm.
want them to feel like empowered and have a good time. And like, I think I've discovered that that's what's right for me and what I need as a writer, and
Mhm.
I think what I hope to give to my readers. So not that I don't like a bleak book. I mean, I just said like Paul Tremblay's my favorite author. So like I like some bleak shit, but like for me personally, to have to write a book and sit with it for as long as I have to sit with it,
Mhm.
it wouldn't be healthy for me to go into a bleak place. Like I need to remind myself to be hopeful, and that's what I want to give to my readers too.
Yeah, I think that's something that people who don't write might not think about, that when you're the author of something, you have to go there in your head. So if you're writing something really dark, it can get quite it can be traumatic if you're
Yeah.
immersing yourself. Um yeah.
Yeah, even Such Sharp Teeth, that was a really difficult book for me to write.
Mhm.
And like even though the ending is hopeful, it was hopeful because it had to be, but like, you know, there's a metaphor in that book and it was tough. And so
Mhm.
it's hard to sit with those things for a long time. And just because I write in the horror genre doesn't mean like I don't necessarily like some people would say horror shouldn't have happy endings. I don't
Right.
necessarily believe that's
Mhm.
true. So I'm like, I do what I want.
Yeah. Um,
I'm creating my own space. So
so you should. Well, I find I feel quite uplifted at the end of your books, and the metaphor that you're working with in Such Sharp Teeth, I think that sadly that's very relatable to like all the women I know basically. So
yeah,
but I find themes like that are written this well, it creates sort of like a little community kinship in your reader base. Like I don't know how many of your own reviews you read, but I always go straight to reviews when I finish a book because I'm looking for people who feel the same way I do so I can talk to them about the book. And it's really nice coming across they're a little like, you know, Rachel Harrison book spheres out there where everyone's like talking about things like that. And it's yeah, there's a definite sort of like sisterhood kind of feeling with it, with like so
I'm gonna cry. That means I don't
oh
read my reviews because I'm very sensitive, but that makes me very happy. That like is so life affirming to hear.
well, I'm happy to tell it to you then.
Yeah.
I'd read the reviews if I were you. They're pretty good.
Well, I'm made of glass. I'm so fragile. I have friends who read all of their reviews and I'm like, nope, I can't. Even the good ones, because like I know if there's one bad one, that's the one that'll stick in my head, you know?
Yeah, I like I think the first short story I ever sold, the first review of it I saw, I was really excited to read and it was really negative and it killed me for like 2 years.
Yeah.
But I got over it. I've decided to find it funny instead if I see one now, but it's hard.
Something that I like earlier in my career, if I got tagged in a bad review and saw it, I would make myself laugh because I would listen to Boulevard of Broken Dreams by Green Day. Because I just like I just like it was just like such a like funny thing for me to be like see a bad review and just be like, I walk a lonely road.
Yeah, you gotta have a little
Yeah,
purge of sorts. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's how I approach everything, anything negative in life. I actively try to find it funny in the moment
Yes.
so that, you know, and then I just cry later.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I do. I don't know if that's healthy, but
I
that's how I
cry
deal with
I
things.
cry first and then I laugh.
Yes, exactly. I have one more question for you, and this might seem a little out of left field, but
Bring it.
this has turned into a running thing in these author interviews. I brought it up as a joke to the first author I mentioned this to, and people that watch and listen to these really like it. And so far, no one has known the answer to this, so this is a running mystery that I'm now weaving
Okay.
into. Do you know what this is?
So is that the purple people eater? No, because it only has no one-eyed.
No.
What is it?
Um, I can tell you, but only when we stop recording,
Okay.
because I'm offering a prize to any people who
Uh,
watch. If they know
damn.
this, I'm going to be very sad when someone finally knows where it is.
Okay. I'm glad I'm not the only one who doesn't
Oh
know.
no, no one has known so far.
Okay.
It's just turned into a thing. Um, so okay, so I just want to thank you again for being here. It's been I don't know if you could tell, but I was just really excited to get to speak to you because I'm such a huge
Oh,
fan of your work. And I know that people who watch my channel and visit my site are going to be really excited to see you here. Um, everyone, remember Rachel's new book is coming out. Is it September 10th?
September
Yes.
10th. Yes.
September 10th. And I will put a pre-order link in the description of the video as well as Rachel's website information and everything. So you can find her on her socials and I'll link it all down below. But yes, if you hang back for a second, Rachel, I will explain
Yes.
the purple monster to you.
Please do.
Yeah, and to everybody else, we're going to say bye and bleed.
Thank